Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
On the show with us today here in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting across the podcast table from me, Peter Gallinari. Now, your bio, when I start reading it, it actually gets rather lengthy.
Yeah, I know.
You have worked with everybody from Leslie West, Mountain, Derek Hess, Fergie Ferguson from Toto, Joe Bouchard of Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah.
Who haven't you worked with?
You know, I've been very lucky. I'm the luckiest dude around. It's funny, I fell into this business by chance. I'm from Brooklyn, and I had a local band when I was younger. And we moved out of Brooklyn when I was around 21 to Westchester County. I call it upstate New York because it had some trees. But it's really not upstate New York, you know. So I played in bands for years all over New York City and stuff like that, locally, like everybody does here in Tennessee, you know. People play downtown. My downtown was playing at the Elbow Room or Kenny's Castaways or, all those kind of places. So at this point in time, I did it for like 20 years. And I went to a house party that I went to every year. And my local band used to host it. And people came from all over. It was like a 12-hour party of music, which was great. And at that point in time, I was 46 years old. And that goes 23 years ago. So been around a while. And long story short is I played, and some guy walks up to me, and this massive amount of people playing all day. And he says, hey, I like the way you play and sing, and I want to hook you up. I laughed at the guy, basically. I was like, yo, I'm 46 years old. You know, where were you 20-something years ago, you know? Kind of blew it off. I gave him my phone number, and lo and behold, 3 months later, I got a phone call. And my daughter answers the phone. She said, Dad, there's some guy called Vinny something on the phone. He's going to bring over a rock star over to the house. And I'm like, what are you talking about, you know? And sure enough, this guy introduced me to rock stars because of by the name of Richie Scarlett. And Richie Scarlett's a guy I've been with for 23 years, playing keyboards with him in all his shows. And he was the one that took me under his wing. And no matter where he went, he brought me and introduced me to all these rock stars. And before you know it, I'm on stage with Anton Fig, one of the greatest drummers in the world. You know, I had Kenny Aronson, a bass player, Bob Dylan's bass player. I had on the right of me was I remember that day, it was with Ron Saul. I call him Bumblefoot. He was with Guns N' Roses for like 10 years. You know, Richie Scarlett on guitar, and then Ace Frehley came in, and we played with Ace. And I sat there, and I was on stage a couple of times not knowing where I was, you know. And the funniest part about that whole thing, we're in the middle of the concert, and at this one point in the song, I'm supposed to take a solo. I forgot where I was.
Oh, my gosh.
And they go, yo, Pete. And I'm like, well, because, I'm looking around me. You're taking this guy who's never been at that level for all those years. You know, I didn't do it at 20 years old like they did. They were on the road since they were 17. You know, this is all new to me. So it was a little surreal. I had tears in my eyes. I remember after the show in the dressing room, and they yelled at me. You know, I'm just standing there saying, thank you for having me. And I got a tear in my eye, and they're going, what's the matter with you, man? You know, like, no, man, thank you for having me. I said, well, you wouldn't be here if you couldn't play. And that still never sunk in with me, because you never know how good you are, right? I still don't think I'm good, at all. But that's my backstory there of how I got into the business.
let's go back to the very beginning.
Sure.
You as a kid, and anybody that listens to the show, this is obviously the question I always like to ask. Who were your musical influences as a young kid or as a teenager? Who were you listening to?
It's funny, I wasn't a Beatles fan, so Beatles fans don't kill me.
You know, what's interesting, though, we've heard that from more than one person.
Wow.
You know, it's not everybody. I wasn't in the beginning. Right. I wasn't a Beatles fan.
Right.
I don't think I became a Beatles fan until I was in my 30s.
Same way. I appreciated your artistry as I got older, all right? And you listen to some of these records, right? But I was never a Beatles. I was Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, and then also Kansas and Rush, and those all came into play a little bit later. But those were my big influence since like 69, 70 was Styx. It's funny, I've always lived with it my whole life. If you go out to my websites or even just Google me, I sound exactly like Dennis DeYoung. I don't know why, but I always had his tone and his tenor type of voice and an automatic vibrato that I don't know where I got that from. And I actually got to talk to Dennis. Dennis actually called me up a few years ago. We're both endorsed. I would say endorsed. We're both part of the Hammond family.
Right.
I've been with them forever. And so, they have our names on the walls in the Hammond place and all that. And Dennis happened to be there one day getting his Hammond retuned or whatever. They were working on his Hammond. And he had seen one of my videos because they gave it to him. So when he was in there, he said, "Who's that guy that sounds like me?" So Peter Gallinari, he says, "Give me his number." I'm driving home from a job. And I get a phone call from Chicago, which I wasn't going to pick up because no name came up. But sure enough, I did, because I thought it might have been Hammond. And it was Dennis. He goes, "Hey, Pete." And I'm going, he's from South Chicago. And I'm going, "Oh, Dennis, I'm sorry." Because, I sound like him. And everybody hears me, and he makes me come up on stage, do Come Sail Away. It's just really funny. But we ended up getting to know each other. And he invited me personally to his one of his shows. And I sat backstage with him and his wife. So for me, it was kind of cool,
When did you start playing keyboards?
7 years old.
Were you classically trained?
I don't have a lesson in my life.
Really?
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a clue why I go from point A to point B. If a music teacher ever watches me play the keyboard, they freak out a little bit because I have no instructions. So I just do what I do. I had a little 11-key keyboard.
Right.
Emeritus organ, that's what it's called. And it ran by air. It was all air. And I used to play the notes as I heard songs and try to mimic the melodies. And then I remember my dad when I was 14, 12 or 14, well, closer to 14. He got me a real big, a real synthesizer, And my mom, typical Italian mom, "What does he need that for? Why does he need that?" And but she appreciated it later on. And that's how I got started in Brooklyn, doing block parties.
Yeah. Did you ever get to the point where you could read music, read chord charts, or is it all just by ear? By ear.
My sister was 8 years older than me. It was really great. The great story with her was she was going for lessons for piano at Brooklyn University in Brooklyn, whatever it was. So she goes, "They're doing group lessons with whole classroom of 30 people. Why don't you come?" I said, her name is Angela. I call her Angel. I said, "Angel." I was really 20 years old. Been playing for how long? And I said, no. She said, come on, over, go. You, me, and my friend. So we go there. So the instructor is asking everybody one at a time to go to the piano just to see if they have any dexterity at all. Could they do anything on the piano? So everybody's going up just picking notes. So I go up. She's already laughing in the back of the room. I'm wailing away. So he smacks me in the head. He goes, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "You can't read music?" I said, "No." So I went to a couple classes, but I took the book home and I wrote down what the notes were and I memorized it. So we went back to class. He put the music in front of each one of us. I got up there. I'm playing the song but looking the other way.
Wow.
So he says, "Stop." He goes, "Start over here." In the middle. That's when my sister was on the floor rolling, going, there was no way I was going to do that. And I did. He goes, "You memorized?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I can't." That was my last lesson. I couldn't do it. First, I had no patience because I wanted to play.
Did you ever find that to be an issue with any of the artists you were working with? I mean, did they hand you like charts or, when I was growing up, we would write little chord charts. Well, this is a G7 and this is an A minor and E. I mean, were you able to navigate that or was it all completely by ear?
No. So I'll do it myself right now. A few shows coming up, I chart them out. I listen to the song and I chart them out. And I know what an ED is, but that's all I do. I can't read scale.
Yeah.
At all. I don't know. I can see it going up and down. So if I had to look at it, maybe. I don't know. I know it's going down, so maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't sight read at all. So.
And you've pulled it off all these years.
Yeah. I can't say don't tell anybody, but oh my God, here we are.
Yeah.
But it's been my, Burt Bacharach couldn't read music.
I didn't know that.
So I really don't feel too bad.
Yeah.
And
look what he did.
One of the greatest writers in the world.
Yeah.
And nowadays you don't have to. You're lucky enough. I could play what I want into the computer. It will actually chart out the scales for me.
Right.
Automatically. If I need to give somebody a lead sheet, I could actually do that. The software does that. But no, I don't. I was bad, at that. So.
On the show with us here today in Nashville, Tennessee, Peter Gallinari.
Hi, this is Bob Berry of the Safaris of Wipeout fame with the business side of music with Bob Bender.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
Hey, this is Jack Sharkey, host of the Between the Notes podcast. Are you a music fan? Do you still get a thrill from your favorite songs? Are you curious about the history, development, and tech behind it all? Well, then join us each week as we explore that and more on the Between the Notes podcast. Check us out on Facebook at Podcast Between the Notes and find us everywhere you get your podcasts.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here, Nashville, Tennessee, Peter Gallinari is sitting across the table. Some of the artists that you have worked with, I've worked with too, obviously. Before the show started, we talked about Carmine. However you want to say his last name, but Peace, Apache, Apache.
Right.
I had the chance to work with him when he was with Nugent. You've obviously worked with him yourself. And, Ace Frehley of Kiss, B.B. Buell, who I just got to meet this last weekend.
Yes, very good friend.
Yeah.
Very good friend. I'm in her book, too. I didn't even know it.
And she's working on another book, I understand, now. Yeah.
So this one
but
just
you're in the previous...
the one that just came out.
The one that just came out.
Yeah.
Of all of these artists that you've had the opportunity to work with, and I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit here, and I'm not looking for good versus bad.
Sure.
But was there one that kind of stuck out more than anybody else?
I'll have to go with two people in a way for this reason. Richie Scarlett is the guy that actually found me in 2000. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on this show right now. I would have never been if you go to my studio or my house, on my wall is me with so many rock stars that I had the opportunity to either play or record with. I mean, even guys from the Misfits. I mean, come on, him. But who stood out is Leslie West, because I got to tour with them. I call it my mini tour. I did shows with them on the East Coast, which was great.
Now, did Leslie West and Mountain, did they ever have a keyboard player in the band? I don't remember.
Actually, Felix Papalotti, who was a bass player, used to do a lot of keyboard stuff, but they did have a keyboard guy.
Okay.
Many, long time ago. But they were mainly a three-piece act. But songs like Theme from Imaginary Western, all that organ, stuff like that. So they did have at times keys. So this happened by chance. With Leslie, I was sitting home. So Richie's one of the greatest guitar players I ever played with, ever. But for Leslie West, he played bass for like 9 years for Mountain, for Corky Lang. So I used to go with Richie all the time to all the shows. So I got to know Leslie and Corky really well over years. And we knew each other for a long time. And one day Richie calls up. He says, "Hey, Pete, Leslie says," and this is Leslie talking, "Tell your friend Pete, bring his keyboard down. We're doing a show." So Richie goes, "For what?" I'm thinking of putting some keyboards and some tunes. He says, I want to do a few. I said, all right. So he calls me up. I said, "What does he want to do?" And he mentioned something, I think, like, give me good loving and stuff like that, because he's been a fan of those bands for years. So I said, all right. So I went down with my keyboard. Now, you have to remember, at that time, I never played with any rock stars. This was brand new.
So Leslie West was like
the first really tour type of thing. So here I am. I get down to the event. I brought my keyboard down, and they set it up on stage. And it was during a rehearsal, like at 3 p.m. So it wasn't for the show. I guess it was to see, is this going to work with Pete or not, right? So I bring my keyboard down, my Hammond, and I go down, set it up, and we start one of the songs. And then he looks over for me to do a little solo. I wouldn't even look up at the man. I was so nervous. You talk about a legend. You talk about Mountain. I wouldn't look up at him. And thank God Richie was playing bass right next to me so I could look at him. And he's smiling. And he said, "I take a solo." So I'm doing my solo. And I don't know what to say. That's not a bad thing. But, Leslie was a big man,
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, the big guy." Richie goes, "The big guy, he's smiling. But I wouldn't look up to see anything, right? I was so nervous. So we get done. We get done with the rehearsal. I'm walking off stage. I'm walking down the steps, and here he comes walking down off stage. And Leslie looks at me, and he goes, "Pete, you're out of the effing band."
What?
So I looked at him, and thank God I did quick. I don't get nervous. I go, "Leslie, I was never in the band." So he just had to say something. He says, look, he smiles, puts his arm around me, he goes, "Be here at 10 o'clock. We got a show to do." I mean, this will be in my books eventually, I'll never forget him for that. But I still didn't know if I was going to play. So I went down to the dressing room, and sure enough, I ended up doing the show. And I thought that was my only show, a one-time deal. And then after the show, they had a meeting, and they came over and said, "You want to do the other shows?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I was going to say no. Let me look at my calendar,
Yeah.
I mean, so that's how I got with that. So Leslie really made an impression on me, because he didn't have to bring me on board. He was taking Richie Scarlett's word for it. And he knew I was Richie Scarlett's keyboard player for years when that happened. So thank God it went off all right, But I was really nervous. I was like, meanwhile, I'm a grown man here. I was shaking. My legs were shaking.
You're also a songwriter.
Yes.
And you've worked on a couple different projects. One of them, in fact, was Angel Wallenda.
Yes.
From the Flying Wallendas, I take it.
Yes.
What was that all about?
Yeah, if I don't cry about this one, I'll be all right.
All right.
She brings tears to my eyes. I got to meet Angel. I used to work at Reader's Digest. I spent 20 years there. And one day I get a phone call from my uncle. Actually, it was my wife's uncle, Uncle John. Uncle John says, "Listen, I'm coming to the auditorium to listen to Angel speak to all the employees, because Reader's Digest did a very big story on her. The largest story in the history of any magazine. 125 million readers read her story.
Wow.
At that time, that's a lot, right? So what ended up happening was she said, "Listen, let me come to the auditorium and talk to everybody." So we were like, yeah. Uncle John calls, "I'm coming to the auditorium." We said, "Uncle John, why? You don't work at Reader's Digest. It's for employees only." He goes, "Well, I never told you." I'm like, "What?" He said, "You remember when I was a foster parent?" I said, "Yeah, well, you did that forever." And he took on these foster kids, but he had moved out of the district. In those days, if you moved, you weren't allowed to take your foster children with you. You had to give them up, which was kind of sad. He said, "Do you remember that little blonde Lizzie that you used to play with when you came over?" I said, "Yeah, we used to have fun with her all the time we came over." He said, "That's Angel."
Oh,
I said, "Well,
my
what do you
gosh.
mean that's Angel?" He said, "Yeah, I kept in touch with her over the years, and she ended up marrying into the Wallenda family at the age of 17, which you really can't do. she started walking on the wire. She didn't start at 5 or 6, like normal, or even 3. She was on the wire at 17. So she married into the family. Angel then got cancer at the age of 21 on her leg. And they actually amputated her lower part of her leg, put a prosthetic on. The amazing part about that is that they told her, you'll never walk the wire again, because if you don't feel the wire on the bottom of your foot, you're going to fall. So she was a tough cookie, man. She said no. That next day, she's up on a wire, walking the wire.
Wow.
And blindfolded. I mean, like, to her, this was her life, and she did it. So she became very famous over the years. And I got a chance to meet her, came to my house. We had dinner. She came to my studio. My uncle should have been my manager. He bragged about me like crazy. We spent 3 hours in my studio, me just playing music for her while everybody else was upstairs. She told me back then, this is before I got found by Richie Skolnick. This was 1995, 96. She said to me, you're going to make it. And I laughed at her. At that point, I was already 40 years old. I'm saying, Angel, I've been doing this forever. I said, I appreciate it, but that's not going to happen. She yelled at me. She's a very timid type of girl, but she just yelled at me to be positive because she was very positive. And sure enough, right after I met her, a few years later, the Oklahoma disaster happened. And I wrote a song for the Oklahoma disaster. It ended up going worldwide by chance. I used to sing, Catholic boy, sorry, my priest back home in Brooklyn. I used to sing at a Baptist church
Right.
in New York.
Yeah.
The pastor heard the song I wrote for Oklahoma, and he ran out to my house. I played it for him. He cried. I came to the church to play it. When I got to the church with my family, with my keyboard under my arm, get to the church, you couldn't get into church. Now, his church had maybe 65 parishioners. It wasn't like the Catholic church. We have 1,000 in there every day, right?
Right.
Small, but great congregation. You couldn't get in. The Daily News was there. The New York Times was there. Reporter Dispatch. I'm going, being from Brooklyn originally, and the cops were there. I'm going, who got killed? Did somebody get bumped off over here? And he comes running out of the church. He said, no, Pete, you got to get inside. They're all waiting for you. I said, who? Me? Why? Well, you know your song? I said, yeah. Well, I had lunch with my friend. He's like one of the editors at the Daily News. And he said, who wrote the song? And an AP went out. Peter Gallinari, local man, writes song for Oklahoma, and it just ran like wildfire. I was the only one that wrote a song at that time. And in the paper, they stated that way, and they put an 800 number in because the internet, this happened in 95.
Yeah.
The internet just came out, so there was no social media. So they had an 800 number you can call to hear the song. And the funny part about this is that my mom is getting phone calls from across the country of my family going, Josephine, Peter, Josephine, you're in the newspaper. And my mom's going, I'm not in no newspaper. What are you talking about? No, you're in the newspaper. Some Peter did. So my dad goes to the store and comes back with a stack of newspapers. And I opened it up, the second or third page in every newspaper. It's a local man writes song for Oklahoma. I was going nuts.
Wow.
It was really surreal. It was crazy. So I really appreciated that. And you know what? I write from the heart. I was never for commercial reasons. I had idiot friends of me say, how much money did you get for the song? I'm like, stop. You have to be kidding me. So I gave it to Oklahoma as a gift, and they interviewed me live on the air. That was broadcast all over the place. And I said, this is a gift for you guys. And they were thanking me. And I couldn't stop crying. I said, please don't thank me. You're the ones who had this disaster. I wrote it because I saw a picture that night on TV of a fireman carrying a baby down the steps, all bloody. And I lost it. I wrote a song. It took me a half hour. I wrote the music and the words.
For those that lived back in that era of the Oklahoma City bombing, that disaster, it's much like 9/11. You knew where you were at. In fact, I remember I was on a tour bus traveling from Nashville to the West Coast, and we were in Oklahoma City exactly 24 hours before that bomb went off. We, of course, 95, you didn't have satellite news on the buses.
No.
So you didn't know any news. And as soon as you get off the bus, everybody's like going, our family and friends cheer about the bombing in Oklahoma City. And we're like, what? We were just there 24 hours ago.
It was horrifying because there was a nursery in there.
Right.
And, I lost it. You write songs. The song was called Tell Me Why. And I'll never forget that day. And it was so hard. I was on the altar with my keyboard. In the church, you could hear a pin drop. And it was so hard to sing and play that song. And then afterwards, I was surrounded by all these people wanting to interview me. And I was like, I don't know what to say. I just wasn't used to that in 95.
Right, yeah.
But so some great moments. So that was very inspiring. Between Angel sang, Angel Alenda, and the Oklahoma sang. And Angel made the song I wrote for her. I wrote a song for her. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. I wrote a song for her called Life on the Wire. So the best thing out of that whole thing for me that really I lost it, she came to my house. She heard the song. She came to my house. She said, I want to come see you. She brought a box in with her, handed me this box. I was like, what's that? She said, just a little something for you. Nobody ever wrote a song for me. Not forgetting that she's friends with Michael Jackson, Toby Chuck. I mean, she was on People magazine, everywhere. So famous. But we were friends. And I opened this up, and there's a plaque in there, a glass plaque. And the glass plaque is an etching of her walking on the wire with a religious saying on the side. And the funny part to this day, I still don't know why. I took it out of the box and looked at it. I didn't know what to say. And you can see I never lost for words. I didn't know what to say to her. I didn't even say thank you. I took it upstairs to our living room and put it on our mantelpiece. We had dinner and she went home. The next day she calls me up. I said, Angel, I got to apologize. Thank you for this. I don't know why you gave this to me. I said, I just couldn't say nothing. She says, I know. She says, and see, I get choked up now. And she says, nobody ever did something for me that personal, she says. And I know that plaque I gave you, I only gave to 7 people in the whole world.
Wow.
I only made 7. You're one of the 7. And the only other musician that ever got one like this from me is Michael Jackson. I said, do I buy a glove? I don't know what to do. I said, don't ever put me in that category. And she yelled at me again. She said, you have to stop that. And I think of her very closely a lot of times. She's been my angel all these years. And she knew in 2000 that somebody was going to find me out there somewhere. Yeah. So people say you're a rock star. I'm not a rock star, please. I've been fortunate that I play and met and hang out with and record with rock stars. So I've been these guys pay the price. 20 years old, 18 years old, they're on the road.
Right.
My stuff started at 46. So a little bit different in my eyes.
In the studio with us here, Nashville, Tennessee, sitting across the podcast table from me, Peter Gallinari.
Hey, this is Clint from Stone Senate, and you are listening to The Business Side of Music with Mr. Bob Bender.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
When you have a Korg synth at your fingertips, the possibilities are endless. Be it digital, analog modeling, altered FM, wave sequencing, or the multi-engine synth, Korg gives you easy access to a variety of features to help you get the perfect sounds quickly. Whether you're a professional musician or just starting out, Korg truly has a synthesizer to help you express yourself. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products to create new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio, Peter Gallinari is sitting across the table from me. One project we haven't talked about yet, and that's Mary Wilson. She was quite the music legend, obviously, when you think about her background with the Supremes. What is this project that you worked on for her Was she alive when you started to work on it?
No.
Okay.
She had just passed.
Okay.
Pretty recently from the time that I got called into this. This was all by chance. A person I work with, I work for the government also, right? Peter has two complete separate lives. I do data privacy for the state of Tennessee. I'm the data privacy officer. Kind of weird. But everybody in the government knows what I do, and they love it. So I'm close to retirement, so I'll be able to do my music even full time. Somebody at work, a friend of mine, who's an executive at the state, he said to me one day, he follows my music, and he said, listen, I got a friend of mine out in California who's I think you'll get along with. He's a producer, songwriter. He said, I don't know what he does, but he's a really good friend of mine. So he hooks me up with him on Facebook. Guy calls me up a few months later and says, hey, Pete, hey, buddy, I said, you do writing and stuff? He said, I went out to YouTube and I seen some of your stuff, and I liked the way you lay your music. I said, yeah. So what do you got? I have no details at this time. He said, well, I got a song. Can I send you a track? Well, we want to just add additional synth work and keyboard work to it. He said, I think you'd be good for this. I said, yeah, send it. I've done this before, Sends me the track from California. I have it that 5 minutes later. So I start playing around with the song. Sounds great, upbeat. Now, I don't know who's on the track. I don't have a clue. It's Mary. So I do it. I send him back the tracks, and I hear nothing from him for a few days. I'm going, I must have really sucked. I guess he didn't like the tracks. So I ended up texting him. I said, yeah, hey, Paul. His name is Paul Brewer, good buddy of mine now. I said, Paul, you like the tracks? He said, well, yeah, I sent you an email. Tracks are fine. But that was it. I'm waiting for the negative stuff. Like, what didn't you like? What do you want me to change? He said, no, tracks are fine. But I said, you people in California drive me nuts. You're as bad as New York. I said, that's it? He said, yeah. He said, we'll talk, He said, well, did you like the song? I said, I loved it. He said, yeah. How about the vocals? I said, whoever it was, she's great. He said, yeah, Mary did a great job. So I said, Mary who? There's 9 million Marys out there. He said, oh, my God. He said, I'm such an idiot. He goes, I never told you who the song was for. I said, no. He said, Mary Wilson of the Supremes? Well, I didn't talk anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? Wait a minute. Mary Wilson of the Supremes. This is her song? He said, yeah. We had her vocals for a couple of songs, but the music was never finished. I went, it's good that you told me now after I got done with the tracks, because I would have never sent them. I would have been like, it's not good enough, it's not good enough.
Were these demo tracks that she had done, or were they finished product?
No, they weren't finished products. They were demos. To find out, and I can say this on the air now, we actually had 2 songs. No, everybody knew we had 1 song for her.
Right.
Found out there's actually 3 total songs that have vocals already done. Not the backgrounds or anything, but her vocals, the main track.
Right.
On the scratch tracks, basically. So they wanted to get some music to them. So we did song number 2 first, and then we did song number 1. Motown took the other one that we did and just put a release out on March 3rd, which is the day before her birthday.
Oh.
So you got to remember something. I couldn't talk about this for 2 years.
Wow.
I mean, not even family. I couldn't talk about it to anybody. It was hush-hush. And I'm going, I want bragging rights on this. I play with all these rock songs. Let me tell you something. This is so honorable to me. I mean, the Supremes, the largest woman group in the world ever. I mean, and she's like basically the founder of the group, too.
Yeah.
I was just crazy about it. So yeah, we talked and they released it. He called me up, and the second song's already finished, which is great. And the third song, which nobody knows about, but maybe we know about now, we have another song that's going to be in the hopper that we're working on. And Paul Brewer has been so good to me. Oh, my God. He's been giving me leeway to help make decisions on things and listen to the mixes as they're coming along and the ideas that I might have. And on the third one, he says, let me know if you want to, and I'm hoping he goes along with it, but he wants to maybe help him co-produce the third one. So I'm like, whoa, So I'm actually doing a lot of work on it right now. So it's been really, really fun. To me, again, I guess it's just more honorable. There's so many million people out there, 100 times, 1,000 times better than I'll ever be. And, and to be picked,
but
take a chance.
You were just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and the person who said that, and nothing against Oprah Winfrey, I love her. I just never watched the show.
Yeah.
But one night coming home after a gig, they do reruns a lot of times back when. And 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting something to eat and drink, and she's on the air. on TV. I listened to it. And the topic was all about luck and opportunity. So I actually listened. And I had to tell her, if I ever meet her face to face, she really helped me in my career. Really. I'd love to say hi to her. She said, I don't believe in luck, but I believe in opportunity, but being ready for the opportunity. And then you want to call it whatever you want, whatever. But if you're not ready for the opportunity, then you have a problem, right?
Yeah.
She says, so it's a matter of, I happened to be there at that party 23 years ago, and this guy happened to be there who happened to like me. So if somebody doesn't like you, I don't care how good you are anyway. If you're not liked, you're going nowhere. And you know that from Nashville. There's so many great people around.
Right.
If you're not liked, you just leave, go home. But you have to be liked. And I always lived with that ever since I started my career business in music, that I believe in that. So I try to be ready for that opportunity whenever I can and keep on putting stuff out there. I try to tell kids, here's my whole thing, and I can end with this is, I tell young people, do not put a date or a time or an age limit of where you're supposed to be. By here, I have to be here.
Because what you're doing is you're creating an expiration date on yourself.
Sure. Expectations, you don't want to put that out there. Who knew at 46 years old that I'm going to be at a house party and my wall is full of rock stars that I thought in my life I would never even get a chance to say hello to, but I'm on stage with them or in a studio. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally crazy. I still can't believe it. I'm 69.
People want to find you, want to follow you. How do they go about doing that?
PeterGallinariMusic.com. My website's out there. I'm on Facebook. You'll find me out there. I found out lately from friends of mine, we can't even Google you anymore because you're all over the place. So I think if you just Google me, you're going to find me all over the place in reference to something.
Or go to the website.
Go to the website, yeah.
Peter, thank you so much for being on the show.
This has been a pleasure, and I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you so much.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.